The biggest threat to your business isn't failure. It's all the brilliant ideas that never got finished. Now, most entrepreneurs don't struggle because they don't know what they do. They struggle because they don't consistently do what they actually already know. You buy the course or the plan gets made, the ideas keep coming, but somehow the most important work keeps getting pushed to tomorrow. Sound familiar? And eventually that gap between knowing and doing becomes incredibly expensive. So, guys, welcome back to the podcast, Profits Unleashed podcast, where we explore how coaches, consultants, experts can build authority, grow their business, create momentum through intentional action. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and today I'm joined by Robin J. Emdon, accountability coach, author, and creator of Get Resultsology. Now, he helps solopreneurs, freelancers, content creators. He helps them stop drifting, stop avoiding, and start consistently finishing what matters most. Now, his work focuses on replacing procrastination and overwhelm with practical accountability systems that help people reclaim their time, regain control, and create meaningful progress. So this episode is all about why so many talented entrepreneurs get stuck before the finish line and how to create the kind of momentum that turns ideas into results. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Robin.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. And it's lovely to be here with someone who lives in a very nice part of the world, shall we say. Very close to where I live, in other words.
See, we had this talk only just yesterday when I was on Robin's podcast. And as a lot of the listeners know, that I'm a little bit of a nomad. But I'm in Cornwall for the summer. It is a nice part of the world, nice part of England. But yeah, thank you for being here, Robin. And can you share with the listeners, was there a specific moment when you realized that most people, it's not that they have a productivity problem per se, they actually have an accountability problem?
Oh, I would go a little bit deeper than that, because accountability, after all, that's a method that we're just talking about, a means to an end. I'm much more focused being coaching trained on outcomes and where we're actually going with these things. So yeah, my background, I will keep it brief, but I trained all the way back in 2001 in America with the Anthony Robbins in San Diego to be a life coach and to work with him over there. But I didn't really want to work over there. I had a young family back here in England, and it wasn't, although we had Skype, remember Skype before Microsoft killed it? We could do remote coaching, but it wasn't on his radar at that time, and it wasn't really on mine. So I came back to England, set up my own business here, did that for a few years, and then, as luck would have it, I became a full-time single dad. Cut forward to, your listeners will be relieved to hear we're not going to go through every single year of my life. 2019, I'm sat in a coffee shop talking to my older brother, and I'm bragging, I got my degree, look at me, aren't I clever, hard, polishing my fingers out. And he's, oh gosh, he's at the time, I got to go. And I thought, oh, charming, you've only been here 5 minutes. How lovely. So I thought, oh, well, you older brothers, siblings, you can never please him. I thought, I need to do something to keep him interested. I thought, oh, I know. Trust me to take 10 years to do something I should have done in 6. And he went, yeah, why was that? And I thought, oh, yeah, now the caffeine's kicking in. Charming. So I said, oh, procrastination. And I laughed and he laughed. And then I changed the subject and we talked about something else. And then when I was driving home, I was thinking, I don't know who was driving because I was thinking so much. I was thinking, hang on a minute, Robin, you're a trained life coach. How dare you procrastinate? That's outrageous. You've got to square that circle, Emdon, before you get home. And then I started thinking, where else in my life does this appear? It wasn't just the degree, and I realized it was relationships, finances, career, yes, health. I was 60 pounds heavier than I am today because my go-to procrastinating behavior, I now realize, was comfort eating. And I did a lot of that because I did a lot of procrastinating. So the question that came up for me in that kind of face palm moment, that moment of, oh my God, I'm a procrastinator. I'm not just a procrastinator, but I'm a chronic procrastinator, as in everybody procrastinates a little bit. Wash the dishes. Nah, let's go and watch TV instead. They'll wait. Who cares? But chronic procrastination is when you realize it's costing you a lot more in your life. Irrational delay of things that really need doing. And I realized I used to think of it in the same way that we think of the common cold before COVID. Oh, I've got a cold sniff. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I'll probably give it to the whole office. You'll all have it, but everything will be fine in 2 or 3 weeks. Tee-hee, never mind. That's how we all used to treat the common cold. But these days, of course, with COVID, we tend to be a little bit more cautious. But I used to do that with procrastination. Oh, I'm procrastinating today. Oh, don't worry. I'll do it tomorrow. And then in that coffee morning moment, I thought, yeah, but tomorrow had become 10 years instead of 6 to do working from home on a part-time degree. So that for me was the thing that made me stop and think, what the hell is going on? Why am I not getting these important things done? From your listeners and watchers, viewers' points of view, we don't procrastinate with our clients. We don't put I'm really sorry, Karen, I didn't do that thing I was going to do for you today. I was procrastinating, actually. Call me tomorrow. We wouldn't dream of doing that. We get so fired. But we do with our own projects. We do with things where there's no one chasing us to do it, even though it's really important to us. Books we want to write, courses we want to write, all of the above and many other things. If it's only us that needs to get it done, we may have very good reasons why it needs to be done, and it might be hugely beneficial to our clients ultimately. But if it's not direct work that you are accountable to them for, then quite often it gets put on the back burner. And we may not call it procrastination, but if it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck and it wiggles like a duck, it's a duck.
I can relate to this so much, but I'm a little bit slow. It took me about 25 years to figure that out. And what I mean by that is I was in the fitness industry for 25 years. So teaching, jumping, I spent my life jumping around a fitness studio, encouraging other people to get fit. And I loved it. And at the same time, I was getting fit. And then in 2016, I gave it all up to go online, to be an online coach. And I realized, oh, I'm just as lazy as my clients were when I was questioning, why didn't you come to the class today? Because I didn't have that accountability. I was being paid. There was no questioning. There was no putting it off. I had to be in central London on a spin bike at 7 o'clock. And then I had to be over there to be in front of and teach a combat class at that time. And so you never question. And then all of a sudden, I've got all the time, just like anybody else. I can go and join a gym. I can go and do a fitness class. And I didn't. Because for 25 years, I had the accountability of my clients, of the class. I can't not show up. So I can totally resonate with all of this. And isn't it just so fascinating that us as humans are like that? It's crazy. If I'd been doing that for 25 years, why didn't I just continually do it? So is that what inspired you to create Get Resultsology?
Get Resultsology came from the fact that I decided, I'd done over 100 days of training with Robbins in the early 2000s. My brother was a mental health professional. Both of us were like, oh yeah, the cure for procrastination is, it's on the tip of my tongue. What is it? It's clicking my fingers, think, oh, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? No, nothing. Tumbleweed. And I'm like, really? It's got to be obvious. It's got to be obvious. And to some people it is obvious. But it wasn't to me. I was being incredibly dense. And I like to think that I just got a degree. Did I mention that? I'm not supposed to be that. I'm supposed to know these things. So that led me on a search to find out the answers. And I quickly discovered, because then we had the gift that in 2020, the gift that kept on giving, and I mean that in an ironic, horrible way, we had COVID and lockdown. Lockdown meant that we had nothing but time on our hands. And I already was working from home, so I had more time than I needed. So I started researching it. And I thought, I'll go to the research. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm an arts and humanities guy. To give you an example, my last biology exam at school, which was my last science exam, I got 9%, and that's because I spelt my name, and that is not a joke. I am not making that up. That's actually what the tutor told me. And I knew, because I hadn't answered any of the questions. I was amazed I got 9%. But what I can do, if the science is at a fairly good level, like no more than schoolboy, maybe college level, but no higher than that, I can understand it briefly. It just doesn't stay in my brain. It leaks out. It's like a tsunami wave coming out my ears. The more I pour in. But I can understand it long enough to translate it into English. And that's what I did. I started taking notes. I started going through the papers, looking at the conclusions, finding out where the commonalities were, exploding quite a few myths that I didn't know were out there about procrastination and productivity. And I thought, what I need to do is translate that into English. Now, you've mentioned, bless you, you've mentioned accountability a few times. Accountability is what I call an advanced, in my book, I refer to it as an advanced strategy. So just to go back to basics, we need to stay with basics here, because if there was a tablet I could give you that would cure your procrastination, I'd be selling that. If there was a tablet that was a cure for the common cold, goodness, I don't know where you'd sell that online. No one looks for the cure, but you'd certainly find a way of making money from that. There isn't. And that's quite frustrating, because the first thing you have to do with procrastination is understand where it's coming from. And I'm going to tell you, because I don't have any secrets here, it's just human behavior. It's the survival instinct. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response. And if you think about it, you go back to the days when we lived in caves, maybe not in this lifetime, but in previous generations. Although I live near a very famous cave, Kent's Cavern in Torquay, highly recommend it. Don't have any shares in it though. If you go back then, you'd be in the cave with your loved one and your children, and outside is a man-eating bear that wants you for lunch. And it's, okay, so I could go out and fight the bear, but I might die. I might actually be the bear's lunch. Or I can stay in the cave with my loved ones and my children, and we can starve to death. But that will take longer. What am I going to do? I'm going to think about it. I'll do it tomorrow. That's procrastination. That's what it is. But we don't have bears outside anymore, but we do have bailiffs and debts and unpaid bills and no means of paying them that we can think of. We do have health, our own health worrying us, health of our loved ones, that drive us into this, what we call threat modality. We feel threatened by the implications of that bill, unpaid bill, that person that we love getting very sick, all of that. When we're in that state, we close down, because here's the secret, Karen, it should be blindingly obvious, but it wasn't to me, and also I'm going to say it in case it's not to other people. Procrastination is an emotional problem. It's all about your emotions. When you were talking about when you did all your fitness stuff and there were things that you procrastinated on that you didn't do, it wasn't because you were lazy. It was just about maybe what you wanted to do, because you didn't need to get specific. No one was making you do that. And it was emotionally loaded, the idea of stepping up and doing the things that you really knew you should be doing, but you didn't want to. And so I talk about in the book how there is an emotional payoff when we engage in procrastinating behaviors. For me, it was overeating, watching TV box sets, going for a walk when you should be working. All of the things we do to distract ourselves, these are all because there is an emotional payoff. It feels good. That's what it does. It feels good. Whereas doing the thing that feels a bit overwhelming, a little bit too much to do, or just I don't have enough time is the other classic one. So we can talk about timing and how you manage your time, but sometimes it's, but I hustle all day and I've got to do that as well. It's too much. Overwhelm, right? So it's an emotional thing. And where I got to with accountability was the science kept screaming at me, listen, it's basically you need three things. I call it MQ to try and simplify it for people. You need motivation. That's an obvious one. There's no end of motivational techniques out there. I've got a cupboard literally behind me for people on the video that are watching. That cupboard behind me is crammed full of journals and planners and schedulers that I've acquired over many years. It's in the cupboard. They're in the cupboard for a reason. I stopped using them one by one. There's even one in there. I've got 8 or 9 copies of it because I bought it and I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it this time. It was a 100-day sprint. I never got past 30 days, ever. I thought I'll just go out and buy another one because I felt guilty. Motivation is hard to keep going. The second M is, and this is the one that was missing from a lot of the research, a lot of the superficial research you can do online. It's not missing from the research papers, and that's momentum. Keeping going. That's where accountability comes in as an advanced strategy. I call it the belt and braces approach. There are other strategies in my book which don't require you to do any kind of accountability with anybody. But they work for some people. But accountability works because, picking up on something you said earlier, it's because we're human. Let's imagine that on your screen it says you're my podcast host, coach. Let's imagine that you were my accountability buddy. If I said to you, look, by the end of the week, I'm going to have written 500 words of my new course. It's going to bug me all week that I haven't done it because I don't want to let Karen down. In fact, I've just written a bonus chapter for my book. It's not published online yet, but I've written a bonus chapter all about how you can use AI to do that. Of course you can, because my book was written before AI was a thing. Not a single word of my book is AI written. It all came from this empty vessel that's between my ears. And the point was that AI, people, oh yeah, I can use AI to do that. Yeah. Oh, so I could say to AI, remind me every day I've got to write 500 words by the end of the week. And remind me every day, 100 today, 100 Tuesday, 100 Wednesday, 100, remind me every day. And every day when that drops in my inbox, I'm going, that's just AI, I don't care. It'll just nag me, I don't care. But Karen said, have you done that yet? Oh, that feels awkward. That feels uncomfortable. Because we're herd instincts. We're herd animals. We don't want to let human beings down. And there is research into this, which is why I wrote the next chapter, because there's actual research that was done this year and last year. There was actual research, and the year before that, into AI and accountability. And what they found was that AI can do a very decent job of giving you advice on how to become more productive. And people, and I won't bore you with the details, but the research pointed out that when people realized that the advice was coming from AI, they discounted it, even though they might previously have said, oh, that's really good advice. But when it was coming from a human being, even if it wasn't quite so sharp, even if the wording of it was a bit more clumsy, they were like, yeah, but I don't want to let Karen down. Are you kidding? No, I'm not doing that.
It's interesting, isn't it, that it is always about, you shouldn't be letting yourself down, but isn't it fascinating how we as human beings, we are always more concerned about letting others down, as opposed to if it was just about us, we would achieve everything, because otherwise we are letting ourselves down. Isn't it funny that the way we treat ourselves is always worse than we would ever treat anybody else. The way we talk to ourselves is always what can be always worse than we would ever dare to say things to people that we even dislike. So it is quite fascinating. And I can totally believe that, yeah, it's AI, it's not the same thing, but it is. There's something about letting others down that makes a difference. But what would you say, with your particular framework, what actually causes important work to keep slipping week after week, even when people, they genuinely want to get it done? So what is it that's stopping them?
Oh, your emotions. It's always your emotions. And your emotions are triggered by things like overwhelm. I described my research when I first opened it up. I discovered 95% of us will describe ourselves as procrastinators sometimes. So what? Big deal. You didn't wash the dishes today. Doesn't matter. But of the 95% that self-identify as procrastinators, 1 in 5, 20% of them, will admit to being chronic procrastinators. And I consider that a very serious condition. And I know I've got it. And I'll never not be a chronic procrastinator because I experienced it. I'm just producing a new course at the moment to help people's stalled projects get going. They've called it From Stalled to Underway. Hopefully it's obvious from the title what that's about. And the point about that is that obviously there's a lot of moving parts when you produce a course. There's the narrative, there's the presentation, there's the sales page, there's the emails. It's a huge project. And I said, okay, I'll probably get this done in a week. That was a month ago, right? Because I got overwhelmed. Now, I didn't procrastinate about it too much because there was just a lot to do. But if I'm being honest, I probably did procrastinate a bit because it felt overwhelming. I could sit down and finish that sales page today, just finesse it and do all of this. Or, no, I think I want to watch that finale of that box set I was watching. I'll just do that and then I'll do it. In fact, that's a perfect example of that some people don't procrastinate, not very much, not on the important things. God bless them, because success leaves clues, and I want to know what they're thinking and what they're doing that I can't do and see if I can adopt it. And I had a friend when I was writing the book, she said, what are you doing, Robin? I said, I'm writing a book about procrastinating and how to get it more productive. And she said, oh, yeah. She said, after making the obvious joke about, oh, yeah, I thought about doing that. I haven't got round to it yet. Oh, never heard that joke before, right? I said, look, I know you don't procrastinate. I know you're a very successful businesswoman. And I said, do you mind if I pick your brain? Because success leaves clues. And I was leaning in. She said, yeah, go ahead. And I said, go on, then tell me, when you've got a lot of work to do, why don't you procrastinate? She said, oh, that's easy. She said, look, I'll buy myself like a piece of chocolate cake. And I cannot have that piece of cake until I have done 3 hours work. And I'm there writing notes, making notes, writing notes. And when I look up at the screen, I say, "Is that it?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh," and I start crossing out. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "That wouldn't work for me." And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "No one's telling Robin he can't have his chocolate cake. Are you kidding? I work for myself. I will decide when I have the chocolate cake, not somebody else telling me." And I said, "And I know what will happen. I'll have the chocolate cake and then I'll do the work." Never happens. I have the chocolate cake and it's like, "Oh, I'm a bit full now. I think I'll go for a walk." Right? Or watch TV.
Well, that's
or
why
whatever.
we're all different. That's why different things will work. So can you walk us through the core principles of Get Resultsology and how it helps people move from intention to execution?
Absolutely, because you've nailed it when you said we're all different. So my book is not meant to be, there is only one way that you can do this, there's only one thing you can do, and this will work for you or it won't. We're all different. In my book, I talk about tortoises and hares to define the broad personality types. Aesop's fable, the tortoise and the hare. Basically speaking, people have brains drop into one or other of those categories to the spectrum. So there's that. So how can you write a strategy that would work for a tortoise and also a hare? It's not possible. Right? The tortoise will be like, "My train home from work goes in 2 hours' time, so I better leave now to get my train or I'll be late." And the hare is like, "My train from work goes in 2 hours' time. I will leave when I've got, it's 5 minutes to when actually leaving the platform, and then I'm going to run." Because they like that. They're the hare, right? So different strategies. So, but here's the thing. So what I did was, when I looked at the science, basically said it's all about your mindset and getting your mind into a place where it can be productive. Because I mentioned threat modality, the bear in the cave thing, the bills, the illnesses, the overwhelm, all of that triggers the threat modality. And when you go into threat modality, what happens is you shut down. And you can work through it, but really badly. And it's easy to be distracted. So I came up with, when I looked at the research, it said that basically your brain, because this is all an inside job, it's all about how you're wired, needs 3 neurotransmitters to be present to guarantee you are in your peak state. Peak state for sport, peak state for working productively. So you'll be familiar with some of these. Dopamine, noradrenaline, and acetylcholine. By the way, took me a year to memorize those 3 words. Not joking, told you, science not my thing, right? When I first read those things and I realized what they did, I thought, I need to translate those into English. So that's what I've done. So I talk about getting your brain into the groove of productivity. And by the way, I don't care about productivity. I care about the results. Because being productive sometimes can be like just having a rest. That can be one of the most productive things you can do. It's not necessarily about running on the treadmill all the time. That's not what I mean. But when you want to actually knuckle down and do some work on your computer, on your book, or whatever it is, you need these 3 neurotransmitters. And I've called them, because I'm an arts and humanities guy, not a science guy. I mentioned that, didn't I? I called them the conductor, the scholar, and the fun-sized warrior, to help myself remember them, right? Because I need these 3 guys and girls to be present to help me be productive. And that's all I need. Because from that, I can work out the strategies. Now, what do I mean by that? The conductor, he lives or she lives in the prefrontal cortex up here in your forehead of your brain, which is, if you're a student, if you're under 25, that's a kicker because it's not fully formed yet. What's the largest group of procrastinators in the world?
Oh dear.
Students, right? It's not just environment where they've got getting a taste of freedom because it's the first time they've moved away from home. It's also they are hardwired not to be particularly rational with their thinking. Right? Because the prefrontal cortex is where all the rational thinking goes on. The conductor, the captain of the ship, if you want to call him that. The conductor, but I like the conductor of the orchestra because I think about all the different things that are going on in your brain. It's all the different instruments in an orchestra, making an absolute cacophony of sound, horrendous. And then the conductor comes along, hands out the sheet music, rehearses everybody, and makes the music of your life. That's what the conductor is designed to do. But also, to help the conductor need to do that. So that is all about getting organized and being organized. You need the conductor in the building, and they are in reward modality. If you're in threat modality, the conductor, he's out to lunch. Can't do anything. He's not very strong, Because threat modality is a great big warrior, great big Karen with her shield and her Hildegard shield and her swords, and she's out there kicking bottom. Right. And that's great if you're in the army or you've got something difficult that you've got to get done and dealt with. I don't mean work. I mean that a difficult person needs a sharp kick up the proverbial backside as well. But you don't often need the warrior, really. But what you do need is a fun-sized warrior. And a fun-sized warrior, like chocolate bars you get in your lunchbox. And I call them fun-sized because they're not full-blown, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm too anxious. There are just a little bit of anxiety. As James Clear talks about in his book, he talks about the Goldilocks rule. Not too much, not too little, just enough. And you need just a little bit. So while I'm talking to you right now, I'm on the edge of my chair. I'm just a little bit on edge to keep the creative thinking juices flowing. If I leaned back in the chair and got very relaxed, I would completely forget where I was, never mind what I was talking about. To relax, you need a little bit. So you need a little bit of anxiety. By the way, that's where the accountability kicks in. It's that little bit of, if I don't get this done, Karen on my shoulder, she's going to be, Robin, get on with it. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. Just a little, I'm anxious, but not too anxious. If I get too anxious, big warrior comes out, threat modality, fun-sized warrior doesn't get a look in. They have to go back to barracks. They can't work. Big warrior shuts everything down. That they produce cortisol, which puts you into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And finally, you need the scholar. And the scholar is noradrenaline. Now, noradrenaline's an interesting one because I didn't know this until I read the science, but when we're kids, we got a lot of it. We got tons of it. And that's because when we're children, when I first read this, it was counterintuitive, and I thought, oh, no, actually, that's true. Children are brilliant at focusing. They are superb at it. Now, of course, they're easily distracted. I've got gas! Ah! No matter what they're doing, I need to deal with that right now, or I feel sick or whatever. But how many, I don't know if you've got kids, but maybe you were one, maybe you were one once. Apparently I was. But with my kids, I remember when they were little, there was like one movie that they would watch again and again, hours, weeks, days at a time, to the point that I was completely nauseated by it. Cars was one of them that came out when mine was young. Lovely film, but I could probably recite it line for line because I've had to sit through it so many times. But Christmas Day, you get them the most fantastic toys. What do they play with? They play with the box they came in. And they play in a very focused way. Why? It's a survival mechanism again, because children have to learn to survive. And although they're vulnerable for a very long time, they need to learn to understand their parents. So they need to learn language. Then they need to learn to speak it. Then they need to learn to walk. Then they need to learn to run. And they do that in an incredibly short amount of time compared to the rest of their life. Someone was pointing out to me the other day, and I completely agree with them, because I was hopeless at languages at school. And they said, basically, if you haven't learned a second language by the time you're 5, you're screwed, because you're not wired to understand how to think in a different language. You always then have to translate, because for the first 5 years of your life, you learnt the language without giving it any thought at all. And then when you try and learn it in an educational setup, and if you haven't already got the skill set because you learnt it when you weren't really consciously thinking about it, it's very difficult to do. That's the noradrenaline. But here's the kicker. In adults, we don't have noradrenaline in our brains. We have to manufacture it. We have to have a little chemistry plant going up there. And we can't do it. We don't literally it's not about the foods you eat. It's about your mindset. It's about, okay, so the scholar is about focus. So you have to create environments in which you focus. How do you know that you're manufacturing it? In fact, the only way you know you are manufacturing it is when you know it's happened. And that it's easy to know that. If you've ever sat down to do some work, or read a book or watch a TV show or anything that interests you, and you look at your watch, you say, okay, I'll just do this for 10 minutes. And then the next time you look at your watch, it's 10 minutes. Oh my God, that was an hour and a half ago. Time flies. Anytime you lose track of time, other than when you've lost your watch or your phone, which has your clock on it, it's because the noradrenaline, the acetylcholine has kicked in because you were focused. So you need the conductor, rational thinking, plan your day, plan your week, plan your month, plan your life, have a good clear vision about what you're doing with everything. You need the scholar who helps you focus and stay in that groove and not get knocked out of the groove, which is also all about creating a supportive environment, which is all the millions of memes out there that tell you about getting rid of all the clutter and all the stuff that distracts you. And you need the fun-size warrior, which then people forget that one. That's where it can be accountability. It can be other things, but it just needs that little edge, just that little bit. Too much and it's too much. If the big warrior comes out because it's like, oh, I had 3 months to write this essay and I planned it all out and I've done all 12 weeks and I've got 2 days to go and I haven't written a word. That's when the big warrior comes out. Panic! Right, I got to blast through this huge amount. It's a very common trope about this. We've all done it. We all do it. And you produce this masterpiece. You produce something that was barely good enough, may get you the grade you want, probably won't. But that's very common. Fun-size warrior, though, they appear in the first week and they come out every day. They come out to play, right? And it's, no, we're not going to wait 12 weeks. We're going to do it today. That's where accountability can also play a part.
Oh, it just all boils down to human behavior. We are quite fascinating, aren't we? But there are, what I'm hearing from you, there's some kind of hidden fear. So there's a hidden fear underneath procrastination that most entrepreneurs don't even realize is driving their behavior. You say that this is all emotionally linked and all going back to the fight, flight, freeze. But what else? What is the hidden sort of fear underneath that?
Well, you're right. I've highlighted the fear because that's the threat modality. And when you're in threat modality, you're not going to be particularly productive. But I started by saying it's your emotions. And look, what it comes down to is very simple. Any behavior you indulge in, any behavior, good or bad, you do it because it makes you feel good. It might not make you feel good in the moment, or rather, it might not make you feel good when you think about it with hindsight, but in the moment, it makes you feel good. We're pleasure pussies. We love having fun. Dopamine is the rock star of, if you haven't heard of neurotransmitters, everyone's heard of dopamine because it's what the dopamine rush from the fairground ride, the dopamine rush from the new movie that we've been wanting to see for ages, and or the new book or whatever, from the chocolate cake that we've been craving all day. Right? We all crave that. It makes you feel good. And here's the thing. If what you've got to do today feels less appealing to you, less good than the thing that you would rather be doing, then you're going to do the thing you'd rather be doing.
Yeah.
So if you've got to spend an hour working on client work, doesn't matter how that feels. If you're a good business person, you're not going to let your client down. But if you've got to spend an hour working on that book you want to write, that course you want to do, as opposed to going for a walk, playing with the kids, nothing wrong with either of those things, chocolate cake, nothing wrong with that in moderation, all of the things, TV, whatever it is, whatever you do, procrastinating behaviors are only procrastinating behaviors when you're doing them when you should be doing something else and you know it. You're doing it because they feel good. They feel good. And that's why I said to my friend, basically, I'm screwed because I'm always going to eat the chocolate cake before the work because I want to feel good. I was just going to say, she was talking about deferred gratification. I learned about that in sociology at school. That was the only science I did study, and it's not even a proper science, apparently, because it's about sociology, not one of the main chemistry, physics, and biology exams. But deferred gratification is, what's that? No, I want it now. That's why I work for myself. That's why most of us work for ourselves. We don't want a boss telling us what to do. We want to be able to pick and choose what we do.
Absolutely. But that can be the problem, right? And so I suppose we're always looking for ways to help with that. So many entrepreneurs believe they need more time, better systems, or more motivation. But that's, from what I'm hearing, that's not actually the problem. So
you've got enough time. If you do, you only need to do the odd exercise with the number of hours in the week. Even if you take out the hours you spend sleeping and the hours that you spend eating and washing and looking after the kids and the hours that you spend working in, say, the day job, 40 hours a week, there's always about 50, 60 hours left over. It's not a time problem. It's an emotional problem. You'd rather be, I don't know, looking at the stars or the northern lights than doing your work. By the way, it isn't because you're lazy. That's something that you mentioned early on. I wanted to come back to that. Laziness is something I talk about in the book. Laziness is a choice. Lions are lazy until they're hungry and then they get really busy and then they go back to being lazy again. That's a choice. It's not a judgment. So if I pop round to Karen's house and she's just slouched on the sofa eating chocolate cake, watching TV, right?
I wish.
That I might pass judgment and say, oh, you're lazy. Actually, she might have just run a marathon. Right?
Yeah, you
And
never
she's having
know.
a break. Maybe it's not a physical marathon. Maybe it was just like she's just done a lot of work and she's having a break. That's not lazy. It's a choice. The distinction is procrastination is when you're not doing something and it is an irrational delay, as in, you know, you should be, you feel guilty about it, and it's still not getting done because the thing that you're doing instead in that moment feels good. Feels better than the idea of sit down at the computer and do it. Now, if you have to sit down at the computer and do something for a client, there's the accountability. It's like, I'm not going to let a client down because that would destroy my reputation and that's a client, that's another human being. But if it's like, oh, I could write 500 words a day, but nobody's going to know if I don't, who cares?
Yeah, definitely. It's there. Now, so being consistent, and that can be one of the biggest challenges for not just for podcast hosts, podcast guests. What advice would you give someone who starts strong but struggles to maintain that sort of momentum?
You've described it perfectly. You've gone from motivation into momentum. And I have a third thing. I talked about MQ, mastery. That's mastery of yourself. So, for example, one of the things I write about in the book is something that I'm sure you will relate to with your background in the physical world, is about managing your energy levels. If you're a morning person, then schedule to do most of your work in the morning. And if there's a guru out there saying, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do most of your work before 7 a.m., and you're an evening person, that's not going to work for you. That might work for them, but it may not work for you. But if it's good advice, then use it. So its mastery is very important. Now, motivation, like my journals and planners in the cupboard behind me, wears out. It's up there with, it's not quite in the same category, but it does come into the same group as what's the word? Perseverance and
willpower.
Willpower, that's the one. Thank you, Karen. It's obviously a Cornish word, and I'm from Devon. Willpower, nice chap. And that's not enough. You need momentum. So there are strategies that you can employ that will help you with the momentum. And for some people, that's enough. AI, in the chapter that I've written extra, I point out you can build motivation into AI hugely, and it will help a little bit with the momentum. But because there's no empathy, it doesn't go very far. And that's the problem. I would never say don't use it because it's helpful, especially if it motivates you. Use anything that motivates you, as long as it's legal. Use anything. But momentum comes from more advanced strategies. And so, yeah, I would say accountability buddy, accountability friend, or professional accountability coach. And I talk about in the book about that. The distinction, I've had lots of accountability buddies over the years, and you've got that can work really well. You pay in time because you have to reciprocate. So there's a time factor in there, which doesn't always suit people. And the other thing you do is, suppose they're not very good at it. Karen, I didn't get the 500 words done that I was going to do with this week. That's because you suck, Robin. You are useless. You are as useless as dog turd on my shoe. And I'm like, oh, God, I didn't need to hear that. Wow, that's mean. That's not motivational. Professionals are not supposed to do that. But somebody that you've asked to be your friend, accountability buddy, they only need to do that once, by the way, and it's completely destroyed all benefit that you would get from them. And that's happened to me a few times as well. So if a professional should know better, and they shouldn't do that.
And I suppose should celebrate every win as well. I suppose that helps with the momentum. When you see results and you actually celebrate it, because we're so conditioned to not think of that. We always focus on the things that we haven't done rather than celebrating the things I talk in the book about, right?
Absolutely. I talk in the book about the carrot and stick approach. And of course, the carrot is preferable to the stick. Unless that's your particular kink, but the carrot approach works much better. So yeah, I talk about setting yourself up for success, like the chocolate cake. You could promise yourself, I'll have that chocolate cake at the end of the day, not the beginning. I'll buy myself that new computer tablet at the end of when I've completed the project. I'll book that holiday. I'll have that nice dinner. Whatever works for you. It doesn't need to be big grand things. It can be little tiny things. It can be, I'll go for a walk because otherwise I wasn't going to get a walk today because that's my little reward. It doesn't have to be big, but yeah, absolutely. Whatever works for you, it always comes back to what mastering yourself, what works for you. So actually the chocolate cake one didn't work for me. That wouldn't work for me.
Brilliant. So look, if the listeners are thinking, okay, maybe it's time that I dealt with this, maybe this book of yours is something that's going to help them. So what should the listeners do next?
The thing about the book is that I sat down to write my own notes. And I thought, actually, as I was writing, I was thinking, I really want to share this because I want to get this out into the world. So it got transformed into a book. And now I give the book away. You can buy it on Amazon if you want to buy it. God bless you. Thank you very much for your pennies. But actually, what I really want to do is just get the technology into your hands. It's a real book. It's not one of these hook things where, like 300 pages and there's a word a page. I hate those things. It's a proper book. And it's a reason that it's got words in it is because you need to understand procrastination, what causes it. It's like at the end of the year. I always say, if you get to the end of the year and you're reviewing a year and you look back and you think, I don't have enough money in my bank account, you can always figure out how to make more money, right? You can always figure it out. But if you get to the end of the year and you haven't got enough time, you've wasted it, procrastinated it away, it's gone. You don't know how much time you've got in front of you. You don't know how much money you're going to make. But what you do know is you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So the time to catch procrastinating behavior is when you're doing it. So I dedicate a section of the book to just teaching you why you are procrastinating so that you catch it. I literally do it every day. I'm like, I'm procrastinating right now. Oh, where's my productivity trifecta? Where's the conductor? Where's the scholar? Where's the fun-size warrior? Come on, guys. Come in. Sounds a bit crazy, like a crazy cat woman, but whatever. I don't care. They're my people. I can call them what I like. So they're in the book. That's the strategy section. And that's just one strategy, the productivity trifecta. I have a variety of them, a toolbox of them. And the final part of the book is all about momentum. Accountability is in there, of course, because I think that is the belt and braces, the Rolls Royce of strategies you could use. But it's not the only one. And there are others that you can do, and that's in the book. So I give all of that away as an unabridged PDF, and you can get that from, at the moment, you can get it from reallyusefultips.com. That's really as in, I really mean it, get it before I change my mind. Useful as in, I hope you find it useful, and tips as in, it's full of tips.com. And for people that don't like books, because words can be a thing these days, don't have enough time, they tell ourselves, I do a video version. It's not of the whole book, but it will give you the things you need. It's called, and you can get that also free. It's a 5-day challenge, skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com. That's skyrockettivitychallenge.com. Also free.
Fantastic. And if you are out there walking the dog, driving the car, and you haven't got hold of that, don't worry. The links will be in the show notes. Fantastic. And I love, it was making me chuckle there when you mentioned the carrot and the stick, because that's exactly what I use for, if anybody's thinking about using podcast guesting as a way to get your message out there to those who need to hear it, just how Robin has spectacularly done today, then I do have a 4-part mini course. And yes, I use a carrot and I use a stick. Now, I use them because it encourages you to actually consume the content. So you have 5 days to consume the 4-part mini course. And if you do, you'll get access to a bonus training. And if any of you coaches out there would really love to automate your sales process, and you don't want to have to rely on doing a ton of sales calls with people who aren't a good fit for your program, then that is the bonus. So I love that. You mentioned that earlier. Yes, I use a carrot and I use a stick. We use deadlines and discounts to move people through and to get them to take action. So yeah, you can get that podcastprofitsunleashed.com/guesting. And look, thank you so much for your time today, Robin. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And to the listeners, see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're